Donald Trump stormed onto Jimmy Fallon's stage with his trademark swagger and that cocky smirk, ready to bully and belittle the late-night host like he owned the room, mocking Fallon's slump and joke career while the audience roared. But the second he threw his first cheap shot, the smiling host calmly opened a sealed envelope and dropped the ultimate bombshell. Irrefutable evidence that Trump's so-called perfect family was built on lies, cover-ups, and secrets so dark they made the president's face drain of all color in a single, humiliating instant. The lights in Studio 6B at 30 Rockefeller Plaza in New York City burned brighter than usual that night. Donald Trump strode onto the Tonight Show stage like he owned the damn place. Fallon stood up from his desk with that big, friendly smile, extending his hand. "Mr. President, great to have you back on the show," he said warmly. Trump shook it hard, then immediately took over. "Jimmy, you look good, kid. Cute host, real cute, like a late-night mascot or something." The audience burst out laughing. Trump grinned wider and kept rolling before Fallon could even sit back down. He launched straight into stories about the border, the economy, how nobody did it better than him. Every line landed with that signature Trump rhythm, loud, confident, impossible to interrupt. Fallon just nodded along, smiling and chuckling at the right moments. He threw in a couple easy questions about sports and golf, stuff that should have been softballs. But Trump wasn't playing small. He grabbed every topic and steered it right back to his wins. "Let me tell you, Jimmy, when I was in office, the country was roaring. Now, it's a disaster. Sad." The crowd roared again, some cheering, some groaning, but the energy was all on Trump. He leaned back in the chair, chest out, feeling that familiar rush. Then, Trump decided to poke a little. He turned toward Fallon with a playful but cutting look. "You know, Jimmy, you've been in a bit of a slump lately, haven't you? Real men don't do bedtime stories every night. They get out there and fight, but hey, that's just me." The audience let out a mix of nervous laughs and gasps. But Fallon didn't say anything. He just paused, hands folded on the desk, eyes locked on Trump. Trump wasn't done poking. He leaned forward in his chair, that cocky smirk growing bigger, and went straight for the throat. "Come on, Jimmy, let's be honest here. You're basically a joke host who never really mattered. All these years on late-night TV, cracking dad jokes, and what do you have to show for it? Nothing. Real men build things. They don't just sit behind a desk smiling for the camera every night." The audience reacted with a wave of awkward laughter and a few gasps. Some people clapped, others looked uncomfortable. Trump sat back, chest puffed out, clearly loving the moment. He thought he had just landed a solid hit, and that Fallon would either get defensive or try to laugh it off like most guests did. But Fallon didn't bite. He stayed quiet for a few seconds, just looking at Trump with that same calm expression. Then he tilted his head slightly and asked in a friendly but sharp voice, "Speaking of real men and family values, Mr. President, how important would you say those are to you personally?" Trump threw his head back and let out a big, booming laugh. "Oh, family values are huge for me, Jimmy. The best. Nobody loves their family more than I do. Tremendous family." He grinned at the audience like he had just scored another point, convinced he was still running the show. That's when Fallon reached under his desk and pulled out a plain sealed envelope. The studio lights caught it as he held it up. "Well, since we're talking about family, I've done some research, verified stuff, birth records, old photos, timelines, nothing made up, just facts." Trump chuckled and waved his hand. "Here we go. More fake news from the late-night crew. What are you going to show me, Jimmy? A picture of me eating a taco? Give me a break." He laughed again, trying to play it off like it was all a big joke. Fallon didn't smile back this time. He opened the envelope slowly and slid out the first photograph. He held it up toward the camera so the audience could see it on the big screens. It was a picture from 2005, Trump and Ivanka standing very close, his arm wrapped around her in a way that looked way too intimate for a father and daughter. The crowd murmured loudly. Trump's smile froze for a split second. "What the hell is that? Some photoshopped garbage?" he shot back, but his voice had a new edge to it. Fallon kept his tone steady. "This one's real, and we have a witness statement from your former nanny." She recorded a short statement about what she saw back then. He pressed a button on his desk, and a brief audio clip started playing. Just enough of the woman's voice describing private moments that didn't match the perfect family story. Trump's face tightened. For the first time that night, a flash of real confusion crossed his eyes. He leaned forward aggressively and growled, "That's fake. Totally fake news, Jimmy. You're desperate." The audience sat in stunned silence as the tension in the studio thickened. Fallon didn't waste any time. He reached down and pulled out a second envelope, thicker than the first. "Let's talk more about family secrets," he said calmly. "This one has a detailed timeline and some old emails. They show Ivanka knew everything about the family situation and actually helped cover it up for years." Trump shot up from his chair so fast it almost tipped over. He jabbed a finger straight at Fallon, his face turning red. "You're crossing a line, Jimmy, a big, ugly line." The audience let out a loud, collective gasp. Some people stood up in shock, others whispered loudly. The studio energy flipped in an instant. Trump stayed on his feet, breathing heavy, clearly pissed off, and trying to stare Fallon down. Fallon stayed seated and hit a button on his desk. A short video clip started playing on the big screens. It was an old family staff member, a former housekeeper who had worked for them for over a decade. In the clip, she looked nervous but clear. "I saw multiple private meetings between Mr. Trump and Ivanka that weren't normal father-daughter stuff. They would go into rooms alone for hours, and afterward, Ivanka would tell everyone to keep quiet about it." The clip ended. The audience was dead silent for a beat, then erupted into murmurs and shocked sounds. Trump tried to fight back immediately. He pointed at the screen and raised his voice. "That's nonsense. Ivanka is just a daughter, a great daughter. She loves her father, that's all. We have a close family, closer than anyone. This is all made-up garbage from disgruntled employees." He started telling a quick story about Ivanka helping him in business, trying to paint the perfect father-daughter picture to win the room back. Fallon let him talk for a few seconds, then slid another paper out of the envelope. "Then maybe you can explain this email Ivanka wrote in 2006. He held it up and read part of it out loud. "Dad, I understand what we need to keep hidden. I'll handle the public side so no one asks questions. Just make sure the story about Mom stays straight." Trump's face went pale. The color literally drained from his cheeks. He stared at the email projected on the screens, his mouth opening but no words coming out right away. For the first time, he looked genuinely rattled. He finally exploded. "This is a witch hunt," he shouted, but his voice cracked halfway through. "A total witch hunt, Jimmy. You're making all this up to hurt me." Fallon leaned back slightly, still completely calm. He looked Trump dead in the eyes and said evenly, "We're just getting started, Mr. President." The studio was buzzing with tension. Trump stood there frozen for a second before slowly sinking back into his chair, his usual swagger nowhere to be found. Fallon reached under his desk one more time and pulled out the third envelope. This one was noticeably thicker, and the way he handled it made the whole studio feel heavier. He opened it slowly, letting the moment stretch. "All right, let's get to Barron," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We have medical records from that period and a DNA summary. I'm not dumping every private detail on the screen tonight, but the timelines don't line up with the official story about Melania's pregnancy, not even close." Trump forced out a rough laugh, trying to look unbothered. "Barron is 100% mine and Melania's, 100%. He's a beautiful, strong kid. You're really reaching now, Jimmy. This is getting ridiculous." He grinned at the audience, but the grin looked tight and fake. A few people chuckled nervously, but most just stared, waiting to see what would happen next. Fallon didn't smile back. He pulled out a formal-looking document and held it up toward the cameras. The big screens behind them zoomed in tight, so every signature and stamp was crystal clear. This is the contract your own lawyer drafted in 2006, hand-signed by both you and Melania, notarized and sealed. In plain language, it guarantees Melania lifetime luxury, multiple properties, huge monthly payments, full security, everything, in exchange for her complete silence on certain family matters. The audience went dead quiet. No laughs, no murmurs, just stunned silence as the words sank in. People were leaning forward in their seats, eyes wide. Trump's face changed instantly. The cocky smile disappeared. He pushed himself up from the chair and stepped aggressively toward Fallon's desk, getting right in his space. His voice dropped low and menacing. "You want war, Jimmy? I'll give you war. You have no idea who you're messing with right now. This is dangerous territory." Fallon stayed seated, completely unfazed. He didn't even lean back. Instead, he calmly slid another set of documents across the desk. These are the financial wire transfer records from right after Barron was born. Millions of dollars move through accounts tied directly to that contract. Every transfer is dated, documented, and traceable to your lawyer's firm. Trump stared at the papers, his breathing getting heavier. Sweat was now clearly visible on his forehead under the hot studio lights. He wiped it away with his hand, but more kept coming. "Those are private family matters," he barked. "You can't just put that shit on television. This is illegal." Fallon kept his tone steady and professional. "When we line everything up, the medical records showing the gaps in Melania's timeline, the signed contract promising her silence, these wire transfers, and the photos from 2005, it forms one complete picture. The story the public was told doesn't hold up. The dates don't match. The money trail tells its own story. And the contract makes it very clear why certain things had to stay hidden." The studio was so quiet you could hear the faint hum of the cameras. No one in the audience moved. Some people had their hands over their mouths. Others looked at each other in disbelief. The energy had completely flipped from Trump's early control to pure tension. Trump stood there sweating, chest rising and falling fast. His usual loud confidence was cracking right in front of everyone. He opened his mouth to say something else, but nothing came out right away. For the first time all night, he looked like a man who realized the ground was disappearing beneath him. Fallon looked him straight in the eyes and delivered the final blow in that same calm voice. "Everything connects, Mr. President. One clear timeline, one truth. And it's all right here in black and white." Trump slowly lowered himself back into the chair, wiping more sweat from his face. The audience stayed completely silent. Trump's eyes narrowed and his face turned dark red. He leaned all the way forward, pointing his finger inches from Fallon's face. "People vanish for less than this, Jimmy," he growled in a low, menacing voice. "You don't know who you're messing with. I'm warning you right now." The audience gasped loudly. A few people shouted in surprise. The threat hung in the air like smoke, thick and ugly. For a second, the studio felt dangerous. Fallon didn't flinch. He looked Trump straight in the eyes and replied in a cold, steady tone, "Then I hope you brought better evidence than threats tonight, Mr. President." Without waiting, he pressed a button on his desk. An audio clip started playing through the speakers. It was Trump's own voice from 2006 talking to his lawyer. "Make sure Melania signs it. I don't care what it takes. Keep the whole thing quiet. Barron's situation stays buried." Trump's mouth fell open. "Turn that off. That's illegal. You can't play private conversations." He fumbled in his pocket, pulled out his phone, and started dialing right there on live television. "I'm calling my lawyer right now. We're ending this bullshit." The audience erupted, some cheering, some booing. Phones flashed everywhere as people recorded the chaos. Trump held the phone to his ear, yelling, "Get me on the line, now!" Fallon calmly reached over and hit another button. The big screens lit up with an old video of Melania from a 2006 interview. In it, she clearly said, "I was not feeling well during that time. I barely left the house." Fallon paused the clip. "That doesn't match the official pregnancy timeline you've always told the public, does it?" Trump slammed his phone down on the desk and jumped up from his chair. "This is rigged. You're a liar," he shouted, pointing wildly at Fallon. He took 2 angry steps like he was going to walk off the stage, then spun back around. "I'm done with this fake show." Fallon stayed seated, his voice still calm and controlled. "Before you leave, maybe explain this. We have clear evidence that Ivanka knew about the entire cover-up. She helped manage the story, coached Melania on what to say in public, and made sure the press never asked the hard questions. She wasn't just aware, she was actively involved." Trump's face burned bright red, sweat poured down his temples. He jabbed his finger at Fallon again and again, screaming, "You're finished, Jimmy! Finished! This is a total witch hunt!" His voice cracked with rage as he grabbed the back of his chair like he might flip it. But the more he yelled, the quieter the audience became. The loud cheers from earlier had faded. Now, people sat in shocked silence, staring at the man who had walked in so confident just an hour ago. The shift in the room was impossible to miss. Trump finally dropped back into his seat with a heavy thud. His chest heaved, his tie was crooked, and his face stayed flushed with anger and panic. Fallon leaned forward slightly, his expression still calm, but now carrying the weight of everything that had come before. "We've seen the photos, the contracts, the medical records, the money transfers, and the audio," he said. "Let me put it all together for you in one clear timeline." He pressed a button, and a full graphic appeared on the big screens behind him. Every piece of evidence lined up in order, year by year, impossible to ignore. And this final piece seals it. He held up a handwritten letter. This is from Ivanka in 2007, in her own handwriting. She admits she knew about the family arrangement and actively helped keep it quiet. The audience let out a collective gasp that echoed through the studio. The letter was projected huge on the screens, Ivanka's neat signature clearly visible at the bottom. Trump shot up from his chair one last time, his face twisted with fury. He pointed straight at the camera, shouting, "This is rigged! Totally rigged! Fake news, fake documents, a total setup! You're all being lied to!" His voice boomed across the stage, but it sounded more desperate than powerful now. Fallon didn't raise his voice. He simply played an old clip on the screens. It was Trump himself from years ago, smiling proudly at a rally. "My family is perfect, the most perfect family in America. Melania and I have the strongest marriage. Our kids are incredible. Everything is beautiful." The contrast hit like a slap. The audience murmured loudly. Trump stared at his own words playing back at him, his mouth open but nothing coming out. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. This isn't... His hands shook as he gestured weakly. The panic was clear in his eyes now. The swagger, the insults, the threats, everything was gone. He stood there for a few painful seconds, breathing hard, then slowly sank back into the chair like all the fight had been drained out of him. He looked small, broken. For the first time all night, Donald Trump had no comeback. Fallon let the silence sit for a moment, then spoke in that same steady, composed voice. "Here's the truth, Mr. President. The photos showed the closeness that raised questions. The contract proved the deal for silence. The medical records and DNA timeline proved the story didn't add up. The money transfers showed the payoff. Ivanka's letter proved she helped cover it up. All of it connects. Patience and preparation beat bravado every single time." Trump sat completely still, staring at the desk. His face was pale, his shoulders slumped, and his mouth moved slightly. But no words came out. The man who had stormed onto the stage full of confidence now looked empty. Fallon gave a small nod. "That's all for tonight." The house lights dimmed slowly. The big screens faded to black. For a few long seconds, there was almost total silence. Then, a few scattered claps started, mixed with stunned murmurs from the audience. Some people looked shocked, others uncomfortable, many still processing what they had just witnessed. No big cheers, no standing ovation. Just the heavy, uneasy quiet of a room that had seen something it would never forget. Trump remained seated, staring straight ahead, saying nothing as the credits began to roll.